The fog had not lifted. It clung to Baker Street like a thought that refused to leave. Holmes had not moved from the window since we returned. Behind him, the room lay in a careful silence, the kind of silence that is not empty, but waiting. On the table, the map remained where he had left it, unfolded, observed, but not yet understood. I stepped closer. The paper was old, though not ancient. Its edges had been handled often, but with care. There were no annotations in ink, no obvious markings to guide an untrained eye. Only a single, faint line drawn with precision. "Curious," I said quietly. Holmes did not turn. "Not curious, Watson," he replied. "Intentional." A pause. She wished it to be found. The words settled into the room. I glanced again at the line. "It leads out of the city." "Yes," Holmes' voice lowered, "but not to safety." He finally stepped away from the window. The candlelight caught the sharp angles of his face, deepening the hollows beneath his eyes. "She was not escaping," he continued. "She was being guided to what?" I asked. Holmes stopped beside the table. He did not answer at once. Instead, he placed a long, thin finger upon the faint line and followed it slowly, as though tracing a memory rather than a route. "It is not the destination that matters," he said at last. "It is who expects her there." The air in the room seemed colder. I felt it then, not as a draft, but as a presence. Holmes sensed it as well. He straightened slightly. His gaze moved not to the map, but to the door. Silence, then a sound, soft, measured, footsteps from below. Not hurried, not uncertain, but deliberate. Someone who knew exactly where they were going. Holmes' expression did not change, but something behind his eyes did. "They have come sooner than I expected," he said. I felt my hand tighten unconsciously. "For us?" I asked. Holmes gave the faintest shake of his head. "No," a pause. "For the map." We did not wait. Holmes took his coat without another word, folding the map once precisely and slipping it into his pocket as though it was something fragile or dangerous. The fog greeted us the moment we stepped into the street. It had thickened. The gas lamps struggled against it, their light reduced to faint halos that barely marked the road ahead. We moved quickly, though Holmes did not appear hurried. He walked with purpose, as though he had already been here before. "An abandoned line," I said, trying to recall the faint geography of the city beyond our usual bounds. "I thought most were dismantled years ago." Holmes did not slow. "Most were," he replied, "but not all." A carriage passed us, its wheels muffled by damp stone. For a moment, I thought I saw a figure inside, watching. Then it was gone. Holmes had seen it too, but he gave no sign. Instead, he turned into a narrower street, quieter, darker. The buildings leaned closer here, their windows black and unwelcoming. We walked in silence for several minutes. Only the sound of our steps accompanied us, until Holmes stopped, so suddenly that I nearly collided with him. He did not turn. He simply raised his hand and listened. At first, I heard nothing. Then there it was, another set of footsteps, faint, behind us, keeping distance, keeping pace. "They are careful," Holmes said softly. "Do we confront them?" I asked. Holmes shook his head. "No," a pause. "They expect that." He stepped forward again, but slower now, deliberate. He turned once more, this time into an alley so narrow the fog seemed to gather and settle within it. At the far end, a rusted iron gate, half open. Beyond it, Darkness. Holmes approached without hesitation. "This," he said quietly, "is where the line once ran." I stepped beside him. The ground beyond the gate sloped downward. Tracks, long unused, disappeared into shadow. And there, something else, a light, faint, flickering, far below. Holmes saw it too, and for the first time since we had left Baker Street, he smiled. "Good," he murmured. "They are ahead of us." A pause, and no longer hidden. We descended slowly. The air changed first. It grew colder, heavier, as though it had not been disturbed for years. Each step we took echoed softly against the walls, swallowed almost immediately by the darkness below. Holmes moved ahead of me, careful, measured. The faint light we had seen from above flickered again, then dimmed, not extinguished, but controlled. "Someone is there," I whispered. Holmes did not answer. He had already seen something. He raised his hand slightly, stopping me. Then, without turning, he spoke. "Not someone." A pause. "Someone who is waiting." The tracks beneath us were old. Rust had eaten into the metal, leaving them brittle and uneven. But there between the rails, fresh marks. Not many, but enough. Footprints, 2 sets, one lighter, one deliberate. "She was here," I said. Holmes crouched slightly, examining the ground. "Yes." A pause. "And she did not walk alone." The flickering light grew stronger as we moved deeper. It came from a lantern placed a headset low, near the ground. Deliberate, positioned, not dropped. Holmes approached it slowly, then stopped. "There," he said quietly. I followed his gaze. On the wall beside the tracks, a mark, not drawn, carved. A symbol, rough, but intentional. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. "What is it?" I asked. Holmes did not answer at once. He studied the carving as though he had seen it before. Perhaps he had. "It is not a message," he said finally. "It is a confirmation of what—" Holmes straightened, his expression darker than before. "That she arrived." The lantern flickered again. For a moment the shadows shifted, stretching across the walls like something alive. And then a sound. Not behind us, not ahead, but above. Holmes looked up. Slowly. "They know we are here," he said. And this time there was no doubt in his voice. Holmes did not move. His gaze remained fixed on the darkness above us, as though he were not looking at shadows but through them. I followed his line of sight. At first, nothing. Only the broken ceiling of the tunnel, where old beams cut across the blackness. Then movement, so slight it might have been imagined. A shift, a presence, gone before it could be confirmed. "You saw it," I said quietly. Holmes did not answer. Instead, he stepped away from the lantern, deliberately, as if inviting the darkness to close around him. "They are careful," he murmured. "Careful enough not to reveal themselves." A pause, but not careful enough to leave no trace. He turned back to the symbol carved into the wall. This time, his hand did not touch it. He only observed, longer, more intently. "This is not their mark," he said. "It is hers." I frowned. "The tenant." Holmes inclined his head. "Yes." A pause. She knew she was being followed. Another pause. "And she chose to leave this. Why?" I asked. Holmes' expression hardened. "To tell us she was still ahead." The lantern flickered sharply. For a brief moment, the tunnel seemed to breathe. The shadows lengthened, stretching toward us. Then a sound. Not footsteps, not movement. A voice low, distant, but unmistakably deliberate. "You are late." The words echoed faintly through the tunnel. I felt a chill run through me. Holmes did not react. He did not turn. He did not speak. But his eyes sharpened. "The game," he said quietly, "has already begun." The voice did not come again, but his presence remained. Holmes did not hesitate. "Stay close," he said, and moved forward past the lantern, past the carved symbol into the deeper darkness of the tunnel. I followed at once. The air grew heavier with each step. The faint light ahead shifted again, then moved. Not flickering, moving. "They are retreating," I whispered. Holmes quickened his pace. "No," he replied. "They are drawing us in." The ground beneath us became uneven. Loose stones, broken wood, rusted fragments of the old line. The tunnel narrowed. The shadows tightened, and then a figure, ahead, brief but unmistakable. A silhouette turning and disappearing around a bend. Holmes accelerated. For the first time since we had entered the tunnel, he broke into a run. "Holmes!" I called after him, but he did not slow. We rounded the bend, and the tunnel opened suddenly into a wider chamber. Empty, too empty. The light we had followed was gone, extinguished. Holmes stopped in the center of the space, still listening. I caught up beside him, breath uneven. "They were here," I said. Holmes nodded once. "Yes." A pause, and they wanted us to see them. Before I could respond, a sound behind us. Sharp, metal, the gate. We turned, too late. The iron door we had passed through had slammed shut. The echo rang through the chamber like a gunshot. I moved toward it instinctively, but Holmes raised a hand. "No," his voice was calm, controlled, as though this had been expected. This was never a pursuit, a pause. It was a containment. The darkness deepened, and somewhere beyond the walls, I thought I heard it again. Not a voice this time, but something worse. A quiet, deliberate movement, closing in. Holmes did not approach the gate. He did not test it. He did not even look at it again. Instead, he turned away, slowly, deliberately. His attention shifted not to escape, but to the room itself. "They want us to think in lines," he said quietly. I frowned. Lines. Forward, backward. Entry, exit. A pause. Movement. He stepped lightly across the uneven ground, his eyes no longer searching for figures, but for structure. "For them," he continued, "this place is not a trap. Another step. It is a design." I watched him as he moved through the chamber, pausing only briefly at certain point corners. Shadows, edges, where the wall met the ground. "What are you seeing?" I asked. Holmes stopped. Not in the center of the room, but near the left wall, where the darkness seemed thicker. "They are not closing in," he said. "They are circling." The words settled uneasily. "And we," he added softly, "are not the target." A pause. "We are the signal." A faint sound echoed through the chamber, not behind us, not ahead, but around. A shift in air, a repositioning. They were moving. Holmes' gaze lifted slightly, tracking something unseen. "3, he said. I stiffened. 3. Minimum. Another pause. And disciplined, he stepped closer to the wall. Then, without warning, he reached out and pressed against the stone. Nothing happened. Then a sound. Subtle, mechanical. A shift within the wall itself. I stared. "You saw that?" I whispered. Holmes allowed himself the faintest nod. "They built this place to control movement." Another soft movement in the dark. Closer now. Holmes' voice dropped. "So we will do the same." He pressed again, this time more precisely. The wall gave just enough. A narrow passage revealed itself, hidden, silent. Holmes turned to me. For the first time since the gate had closed, there was certainty in his eyes. "Come, Watson." A pause. "Let us choose the direction." The passage was narrower than it appeared. Holmes entered first. He did not hesitate. He did not look back. The opening sealed behind us with a quiet, final sound barely audible, yet unmistakable. We were no longer in the chamber, and not yet beyond it. The air here was different, drier, still, as though this part of the structure had been used more recently. Holmes moved slowly now, not from uncertainty but precision, each step placed with care, each movement deliberate. "Not an escape route," he murmured. "A corridor." I followed closely. The walls pressed inward, forcing us into a single line. The lantern light barely reached ahead. Shadows clung tightly to the stone. And then Holmes stopped, so suddenly that I nearly collided with him. He did not raise a hand this time. He did not need to. I had heard it too. Breathing, not ours. Ahead, slow, controlled, waiting. Holmes leaned slightly forward, not to advance, but to listen. Then, a voice. "Closer now, calm, measured. You chose correctly." The words carried through the passage without echo, as though the walls themselves absorbed the sound. Holmes did not respond. Instead, he stepped forward. One step, then another, until the darkness ahead shifted, and a figure emerged. Not fully, not clearly, but enough. A man, tall, still, standing where the passage widened just beyond the reach of our light. His face remained hidden, but his posture was unmistakable. He was not surprised. He had been expecting us. Holmes stopped a few paces away. The two figures stood in silence, measured, balanced, like pieces already placed upon a board. "You are not the first to follow her," the man said. Holmes' voice was quiet. "But we will be the last." A pause. The man inclined his head slightly, not in agreement, not in respect, but in acknowledgement. Then he stepped backward, into the darkness. Gone, Holmes did not pursue, not immediately. Instead, he spoke softly, almost to himself. "He is not the one who waits." A pause. "He is only the one who watches." Holmes did not follow the man. Not immediately. He remained where he stood, his gaze fixed on the darkness that had swallowed the figure whole, as though the absence itself were more revealing than the presence. "That was not a warning," he said at last. "It was a measurement." I frowned. "Of what?" Holmes did not answer. Instead, he reached into his coat and removed the map once more. He did not unfold it fully this time, only enough to reveal the faint line we had followed from Baker Street. This line, he said quietly, was never meant to guide us to a place, a pause. It was meant to guide us to a sequence. I stepped closer. "A sequence." Holmes nodded slightly. "Points, movements, decisions." He traced the line against lower now, more carefully. "As we move," he continued, "we confirm each step for them." The implication settled heavily. "They are watching us follow it," I said. "Yes." A pause, and learning from it, Holmes folded the map again, more tightly this time. "They do not need the object," he said. "They need the interpretation." The tunnels seemed to close in around us, and the tenant, I asked. Holmes' expression shifted, not fear, but recognition. She understood. A pause. and she altered the sequence. My breath caught slightly. Then she is ahead of them. Holmes' eyes narrowed. For now, a distant sound echoed again through the passage. Not close, but not far. Movement, organized, controlled. They are adjusting, Holmes said. To her, a pause, and to us. He turned toward the deeper end of the passage, the direction the man had taken. This is no longer a pursuit, Watson. Another pause. It is a race. I felt it then. Not fear, not entirely, but urgency. Holmes stepped forward. Without hesitation, this way, and this time there was no doubt. We were no longer following the tenant. We were following her decision. The passage opened without warning. One moment the walls pressed inward. The next, they fell away. We stepped into a larger chamber, not as empty as the last, and not as silent. The air moved here faintly, as though something had passed through not long before. Holmes slowed, not out of caution, but recognition. "We are close," he said, his voice lower now, focused, measured. I saw it then. Across the chamber, a figure, still, but not hidden. A woman, standing near the far wall. The lantern light reached her just enough to reveal her outline, her posture steady. Not afraid, Holmes did not approach immediately. He observed, as he always did. "You altered the sequence," he said. The woman did not deny it. Instead, she stepped slightly into the light. Her face became visible, pale, tired, but controlled. "I had to," she replied. Her voice was calm, but not weak. "They are learning too quickly." Holmes inclined his head slightly. "They always do." A pause. "And yet you stayed ahead." For now, her gaze shifted briefly to me, then back to Holmes. "They are not after the map," she said. "They are after what it proves." Holmes did not move. "And what does it prove?" The woman hesitated. "Only for a moment. That patterns can be broken." The words hung in the air. Holmes stepped forward now. Slowly, "You left the symbol," he said. "Yes, to guide us." "No." A pause. "To test you." I felt the weight of that settle between them. Holmes accepted it without reaction. "And?" he asked. The faintest hint of something passed across her expression. "Now I know." Before Holmes could respond, a sound, not distant, not approaching. Already here, the chamber shifted, not visibly, but perceptibly. Holmes turned. So did the woman. And this time neither of them spoke, because now they were no longer ahead of it. They were inside it. The chamber did not change again, but we did. Holmes stepped forward, not toward the woman, but past her, as though the true path lay beyond both of us. "They are not here to stop you," he said quietly. "They are here to observe the outcome." The woman did not turn to follow him. "They already have," she replied. A pause. "And they learned." Holmes reached the far wall. For a moment, there was nothing. Only stone. Only shadow. Then his hand lifted and pressed, not where the mechanism had been before, but where it should have been. A soft shift answered him. The wall gave way. A second passage revealed itself, narrow, hidden, designed not for entry, but for exit. Holmes did not look back. "They built a system," he said. "Predictable, structured." A pause. "And you broke it." The woman finally moved. One step, then another, until she stood beside him. "For now," she said. Holmes inclined his head. "For now." I followed as the passage opened fully. The air beyond it felt different. Not safe, but free. Behind us, the chamber remained silent. watching, learning. Holmes paused at the threshold, just long enough to speak. "They will adapt," he said. The woman did not hesitate. "So will we." Holmes allowed himself the faintest hint of a smile, not of satisfaction, but of recognition. Then he stepped through, and we followed. The passage closed behind us without sound. No pursuit, no resistance, only silence. And yet, as we emerged once more into the night air, I could not shake the feeling that nothing had ended, only shifted. Holmes looked once into the fog, as though searching for something not yet visible. "They have what they need," I said quietly. Holmes did not deny it. "No," he replied. A pause. "They have what they think they need." Another pause. Longer this time. "And that," he said softly, "is where they are wrong." The fog swallowed the street ahead, and somewhere within it, the next move had already been made.